Hey, it's Kley. Welcome to another video. Today we are going to be experimenting with this little beauty right here. This is a little tube amplifier preamp that I found on Amazon or eBay or somewhere from the far nether regions of the internet. I believe it was $18 shipped to my door. It's got two tubes and it claims to be some kind of preamplifier. And we are going to see if we can't modify and finagle and MacGyver this thing to being some kind of guitar effect pedal, and we're going to see how it sounds. If that sounds intriguing to you, go ahead and stick around and let's dive in. Alright, so this little circuit board, a little $18 special from China. It's got to be a beauty. Man, it's got two tubes. I believe there's 6J1 tubes, which I had never heard of before. There's two of them. It requires a 12-volt AC power. So I just bought a little... I actually found in my junk drawer an old AC 12-volt power adapter at 1,000 milliamps of current that seems to be working just fine so far. It couldn't be simpler, more straightforward. You just got these blue screw-in terminal strips here. You just take a screwdriver and they open and close and you plug wires in. It actually, I think, is meant for more of a hi-fi application because it actually has input ground input, output ground output, and then the 12-volt AC input and ground. So I believe it really has two channels, one for each tube. So what I have gonna try to do is see if I can connect some guitar. And you see I've already got some of that stuff up here, but it's like some 1/4-inch input jacks, maybe a volume or gain control into this thing, and just kind of see how it sounds, if it sounds like something that's even remotely usable for the guitar spectrum. I'm really kind of fascinated and curious to see how that would go. So here's what I want to do. Let's start off by taking a little bit of a sound clip. But before we do that, I want to do a little bit of a walkthrough of my setup. So let's take a look at the setup. Okay, so here's my setup. You can see this is the board in its entire glory here. What a beauty it is. You can see I've got my 12-volt power supply cord going right here. That's just being plugged out into the wall. I don't even have a switch on it, so it's just always on. The LED is always on. Then I've got input number 1 coming in here on the far right. You can see here on the board. It goes input, ground, input, output, ground, output. So basically what I've got is I've got guitar cable going to input number 1, and that is grounded in the middle terminal. Then output number 1, which kind of matches, is going into the leg number 1 of my volume control. Leg number 2 of the volume control is going into input number 2, and then output number 2 is going to the output jack. So I believe that this volume control is sitting right in between these two gain stages, which are being put together in series right now. So this is kind of an extremely rudimentary setup here, and there's probably a lot of ways we can, and I would like to expand on it. But then I've got my two guitar cables, and I'm running into my Tweed 5E3 Deluxe style amp circuit into a 1x12 cabinet, and I'm going to mic it up. So before we proceed, I want to do a little bit of a tone clip, and I want to test out what the amp sounds like dry, and then I'm going to plug in this setup as is, and we're going to mess around with that gain control and see if we can't see how this thing sounds. Let's dial it in. Alright guys, I just got done recording that sound clip, and I actually thought it was a really, really fun little circuit to play around with. What I wanted to do before closing things down, kind of review what I was at. I started with just the gain control in between the two gain stages, and running that thing on full, it added a ton of volume boost. I mean, the amp went from a really kind of quiet little bedroom 15-watt clean tone to like really, really pushing the front end of the amp. And I definitely think that this pedal was providing some of its own distortion, but I also think it was heavily pushing the front end of the amplifier, causing it to distort as well. So I wanted to differentiate between the two, so I added a master volume. I added another 100K volume control just before on the output jack. And so that really helped a lot, and it definitely provides kind of a very tubey, light to medium amount of overdrive and a lot of potential boost. So as kind of a character booster, I think this thing is awesome and provides a ton of level. And there's a ton of room to experiment. For example, on the gain control, I could also start adding maybe some tone controls. Even something as simple as like a high roll-off would be totally awesome, or even something as advanced, more like a Baxandall tone stack. All of that would be really, really cool. So a lot of potential options there. Okay, what I wanted to do now is actually take my voltmeter. I'm set to DC volts. I want to go on the pin out of each of the tube socket or the tube pinouts here and see what the voltages are that I'm reading, and maybe I can look at the pinout online and see kind of what corresponds to what. So let's take a look. Negative 31 volts on pin 1. Negative 31 volts on pin 2. 6 volts on pin 3, 14 volts pin 4, 17 volts pin 5, 17 volts pin 6, negative 31 volts pin 7, negative 31, negative 31, 6, 7 millivolts, 17, 17, negative 31. So, yeah, it's definitely not a high voltage pedal, but for what it does, I actually think it's really, really quite cool. Kind of a fun little thing to play around with. I am going to wrap this video up here at this point. I am probably going to think about making a separate little component board where I add the two volume controls and I add maybe a little tone stack for some EQ adjustment. I think some of that would be really, really fun to play around with. But I might just leave it at a booster like this. That would be cool too, because then you can really get that character clipping out of it. So I don't know, a lot of different options here. We'll kind of see where we go with it. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. See you again soon. Thanks. Bye.